These are the faces of the Malays in Southeast Asia. They form the largest number of Muslims among all ethnic groups in the region. Thousands of islands make up the Malay archipelago, once a trading center of the region. At its height, ancient ports such as Palembang in Sumatra, Malacca and Kedah in the Malay Peninsula were the meeting points of merchants from India and the Arabian Peninsula. Their presence was essential to the spreading of Islam to this part of the world. Naturally, in Southeast Asia, Islam has been spread mainly through trade. Islam came here as early as the 7th century. However, it only became significant in the 14th and 15th centuries, when trade brought prosperity to this region. The rich merchants from India and Arabia exchanged not only goods from the West, but also fostered good relationships with the local rulers. It is through these relationships that they exchanged their views on religion, thus influencing the rulers into converting to Islam. In this region, sultans wielded considerable power, and the religion of the sultan became the religion of the people. This explains how Islam had spread considerably fast in the region. The spread of Islam in the region was, however, slowed down with the arrival of the Western powers. In Luzon in the Philippines, for instance, the Spanish conqueror prohibited Islamic practices. In the Malay Peninsula, the early Portuguese invaders destroyed much of the Islamic facilities, such as mosques. The English, who came later, reduced the power of the rulers to only cultural and religious areas. Because of this, the sultans lost their economic power and their direct influence over their citizens. Islam took a back seat during the colonial era. However, it never lost its shine. Sumatra is Indonesia's largest island. It is the birthplace of the first Malay kingdom, Palembang. Islam is believed to have arrived here as early as the 7th century through the region's first contact with Muslim traders from India. In the 7th century, a Muslim trader, Sheikh Mahmud, arrived in western Sumatra port named Barus, a Malay word for camphor. During one of his visits, he befriended a Batak ruler named Makassov and convinced him to embrace Islam in the year 668. The relationships did not last long, as both Sheikh Mahmud and Makassov died soon after. Sumatra's rough terrain, dotted by mountain ranges, had also provided little contact among the inhabitants. This is also the main reason for the slower spread of Islam in the island. However, when the Malacca Straits became increasingly used for trade, Islam gained a stronger foothold on the east coast of Sumatra. Delhi, Medan, and Palembang became important ports, not just for trade, but for the spread of Islam. Finally, Islam was widely embraced in Sumatra in the 16th century as the Islamic Demak Empire from Java spread its influence across to Sumatra. Demak influence in the region ended in 1675. Palembang was under the rule of Sultan Abdul Rahman Khalifatul Mukminin. The heir to his throne, Sultan Mahmud Badaruddin, built the Grand Mosque in 1740, at the same time when Islam was at its peak. The mosque shows the influence of Moorish architecture. By 1825, the Dutch had taken Palembang. During the Dutch occupation, Islam continued to prosper, although at a slow pace. The Islamic community here adopted the Islamic education system originated from Java, called Pesantren. This system featured the residential Islamic school called Pondok. This Pondok school system was introduced by Javanese saints called Wali Songo, who also introduced the religion to the island of Java. Pesantren forms the basis for the Islamic education and is responsible in maintaining the Islamic culture in the area during the Dutch occupation. Padang is the capital of West Sumatra. It is very much separated from the rest of Sumatra by a mountain range. However, it projects a strong influence on the spread of Islam in the region. The majority of the people here are Minangkabau. Islam arrived here from Aceh in the 16th century and reached its peak a century later. Very little was known of this region prior to the 15th century. This is a view of Singkarap Lake, which is a large crater formed by volcanic eruption. Because of high volcanic activities, the soil here is fertile. It is in this Nantibo Valley where Minangkabau practice their unique custom of Adat Perpate. The custom gives women the ownership of the land. This is a practice introduced before Islam, but continues to be widely practiced. The heart of this Adat Perpate is the administration center called Pagar Ruyung Palace. It was built by the Tuanku Yam Tuan Raja Bagagar Shah, who ruled from 1841 until the Dutch took control in 1910. Raja Alam built the Basar Palace in Batu Sangkar, which formed part of the administration center. The 5 tiers of the roof of this building represent the 5 tribes. It has 121 pillars, which represent the number of heads of the village. Today, there are 5 million Minangkabaus in the region, and they are the second largest ethnic group after the Malays in Sumatra. Another building to the Minangkabau's credit was the Padang Grand Mosque, which was built in 1805. A year earlier, there was a bloody revolution in Padang led by an Islamic scholar, Imam Bonjol, who denounced the practice of Adat Perpate. Medan is the capital of North Sumatra. This is where the Islamic kingdom of Delhi once flourished. Islam arrived here in the 15th century and became synonymous with the Malays. The inhabitants of this area were famous for their seafaring activities and adventures, and were involved directly in the sea trade with the Malay Peninsula and the rest of the Malay archipelago. One of the heritages left by the Delhi kingdom was the Osmani Grand Mosque. It was built near to the administration center of Sultan Osman in 1824. In 1854, the Aceh Sultanate ruled this area and appointed Sultan Mahmud as their administrator. Sultan Mahmud was responsible for building this mosque. During the Dutch rule, they had leased some of the land surrounding the mosque to cultivate tobacco. The income from this was used to finance the mosque's construction. The result is reflected by the fine architecture which was influenced by the Alhambra Palace in Spain. As Medan flourished as the center for agriculture, so did the Islamic culture.